Hello there, and thanks for joining me. Today I'm working on both a cast and a speed build, kind of. I wouldn't call it a speed build just because when you see later on in the video, there's not much of a building. So I'm creating two survivor characters for Urban Urban Sims um, Island Challenge. So she rolled the dice, and there's a number that tells you what you either gain or lose. And it's part of the challenge. Each day you roll the dice. So she gets to have two new survivors that will join her. And so I made one female, which was voted on, I believe, by her viewers. She did a poll and they voted for a female. And then she rolled again another time and she said we can do whatever we want. So I'm going to add both female and male. Right now I'm working on Misha, and she's active, she's good, she loves music. Um, she's a Renaissance sim, she has many, many skills. Misha actually won a trip for a free vacation. She was a small business owner back with her husband. Before this cruise, she went on the cruise without her husband and just with some friends. And there was an incident on the cruise that led her to be kind of abandoned on this island. She's very separated from the original characters, which are created by Urban Sim. They're probably, I would say, on the opposite side of the island from where those characters ended up. So choosing her clothes, I actually decided um, they would have basically the same thing for every outfit, with some minor changes. I gave my Sims a little bit of advantage, more to Misha than I did to the male character. Gave them a bit of some differences, like in tops and stuff like that, just because I felt like maybe they found something from the cruise ended up on shore, maybe some suitcases or something. So I give them different outfits. I'm giving her this sweater. I'm thinking maybe it's cold in the nighttime, and then the sports bra um, for like the daytime, and she'll just sleep in her underwear. So I kept it very, very basic just because I had to keep in mind the challenge and the rules and the kind of conditions they would be forced to have lived in from this experience. And I'm just going through trying to find that shirt again. Right here, I was actually considering giving her another top, but I went back to the original one and just kept it the same, which is a little bit boring, but they're abandoned. They don't have many options. So um, they just have to do the best with what they have. And, finding those suitcases helped them out a lot and allowed them to have a little bit of options, but not too many. Let's just pretend that the clothing they found, doesn't actually fit them properly. So right now I'm just going through, as I mentioned to you before, Misha is actually married. Her husband was not with her on this cruise. So I'm giving her kind of a necklace, something that's very meaningful to her, and I'm putting on her wedding band on throughout every outfit. And now we're gonna go and create Jack. Jack is, he's a leader of the pack kind of a guy. He's a born leader. He's self-assured, he's ambitious and outgoing. So Jack actually found Misha as the incident on the cruise was going down, as they were having this grand accident that left them stranded on an island. And he kind of guided her and kept her safe and guided her to shore. So Jack is the one looking after Misha, even though Misha is a pretty independent woman, she doesn't really need him to look after her per se. But he's the one who's like encouraging her, everything's gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this. And later on in the build, um, part of the video, I actually include a llama bush kind of a thing. I think it's a bush, and I put it there as a symbol of hope. We're gonna get through this. We're gonna survive, and it's kind of his way of showing her that they'll make it just by putting that kind of item there. And I'm just working on his features. Wanted to give him very strong brow. But yeah, he also gets the same kind of clothing throughout. With him, he's got a lot less options than Misha has. And his clothing is just way more boring. um, so Yeah, Jack is a crafty guy. He is kind of like a woodsman, and so when he gets on the island, he's able to build them shelter, and he makes them even a bed. There's like a bed with I used from Outdoor Retreat. I like that it had wooden. It looked like tree bark, kind of tree bark frame, like a firewood, like the rose. I don't know what they're called. But the frame was like you could see that it was pieces of wood, like round pieces of wood. So I used that in the build. And now I'm just choosing his outfit, keeping it basic. They're on an island, so it's hot, so that's why I decided to give both of them shorts. I mean, I'm pretty sure in the evening time it would be cooler as it often is. Um, I didn't want to give him that little tank top showing off his abs just for funs, but I decided, if it's gonna be colder, let me try to give him something a bit warmer, which is why I gave him that sweater, which is from the Spa Day pack, and I just go basically throughout the entire catalog of clothing, each kind of thing, and I was trying to give him some fun underwear, but then I decided no, we'll just keep it basic. I think I make it gray later on. And I actually brought some color into the shirts. I didn't want them to be too dull. I did want them to be light just because I'm considering the time they've spent on the island. And maybe they're like, losing some color from being constantly washed. Maybe they're just a little bit dingy. Using a little bit of custom content here. Um, when I uploaded them, it actually says they have custom content, and it's just the skin. It says the skin is custom content, but it's not actually. I have an override skin pack in my game, but you can just use any skin. It's not a big deal. So here we are on the actual piece of island where I think that they might have landed on somewhere down where those mountains are. Um, I also picked these wooden columns. Um, I think that I imagine that Jack would have cut down some trees. He's a very handy guy, and he's a builder. He's a craftsman. So I imagine he would have cut down these trees. Like maybe there were some bigger trees. You'll see later on. I'll use they're like end tables, but they are stumps from Outdoor Retreat as well. And I used them and I pretended that those were the trees he chopped down somehow. And he made this little bit of shelter just to cover them up, maybe keep them a bit warm. There's only one bed and it's a shared bed between the two. And even though Misha's married, they've been on the island for some time now. So I think she would have been comfortable with Jack just for some, comfort at the beginning. But then maybe they would have gotten closer. Maybe not, I'll see. Whatever you decide it to be. I imagine that they would be closer just because that's where I always end up in my story. So here I'm just trying to bring up these bush. I believe that's a bush. Just because I wanted to pretend like he would have used some grand palm tree leaves to like cover the top of their shelter, and that's the only way I thought of doing it. And now I'm gonna pick up more wooden panels for the walls. These are the vines from the vampire pack that just came out recently. I'll be doing a video about that too. I'm gonna do Drusilla and Darla from Buffy and Angel. I love that show, and I love those characters. So much fun. I've always wanted to use these little pegs for the wall, so I finally decided to use them. I just put them in there. I'm not really sure why I put them in there. I just figured they would have some kind of function. Adding in our toilets. So the island is in the, what is this world? Windenburg? And so there's a lot of these bushes everywhere, so I included them, of course. We need them to go to the toilet somehow. Eventually I will add a shower, and that's just something that Jack would have put together. Somehow he would have figured out a way to add a shower, and it's going to be behind that little shelter that we have there. And I'm just adding in some lush because I want to make this part of the island look and feel like it is in fact just part of the rest of, well, I want the lot to feel like it's just part of the rest of that open space. And there's actually houses in the background that I worked very hard on hiding. I guess it doesn't matter now that I've said that they're there. um, Adding some trees. I'm trying to copy the trees that are in the surrounding area, and I did put those little palm trees there. I wish I would have put more. um, just setting it up so that it can look a little bit natural. Okay, so I put those large rocks there. As you can see behind, there's a lot of large rocks in the area as well. And here's where I put the shower in. I was having such a hard time putting in the debug cheat or the hidden objects cheat. Like every time I would put it in, it just would not show up. Not at all. And I put it in like 100 times and nothing would show up. I even restarted the game and I didn't know what to do. So I had to use whatever I could, just whatever was just available to me right there. And those are the stubs. I was so happy that we had those because that allowed it to play a role in the story that I had imagined for this area. Just hiding those little stubs because they have like these flowers around them, and I wanted them to feel a little bit more natural, so I put the little grass around everything. And those are the suitcases that I mentioned earlier that the survivors had come across. They found them maybe, I would say, a few days after the wreckage or whatever the incident, whatever happened to the ship. I imagine it went down. Um, and so, maybe somebody was trying to escape with their luggage, or maybe it just, found its way off the boat somehow, off the cruise. And I'm putting the fireplace pretty close to the shelter just because I want them to be able to keep warm. And I was just deciding what I could get away with um, putting out in this open area. There goes a crafted guitar, since Misha loves music. I imagine that Jack would have put it together for her somehow, using the workbench and probably some spare wood that he might have found. Um, Everything that I decided to add into the game, as far as like, for example, the this this little shelter, those suitcases, and eventually I'm gonna put in a lot of crops. Like I had Misha run around and collect crops because, as I said before, I couldn't unlock them. I also would have loved to add those little alien glow in the dark plants, but I couldn't get them to work. Well, they didn't seem glowy in the dark enough for me, so I just didn't bother adding them. But everything that I have in the island on this section, it has to do with the amount of time that they spent there before they find the survivors that Urban Sim created. And so it all has to play into that. It all has to play into, they've been here X amount of time or X amount of days, months maybe. And you know, Jen, or Urban Sim, she has her Sims actually coming off that main piece of island that was originally supposed to be the main island, the only island. Like, you were not supposed to get off of that lot. But she's amazing anyway. I love her storytelling ability. She's great. She decided that the whole thing would be um, the island. And so that's what it plays into. It just plays into how long they've been there and how long until those characters find my characters. And that's how I designed everything. So here are the screenshots. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching. Bye.